planet's remarkable biodiversity is in peril. Species are going extinct faster than at any time in the Earth's history. Rampant exploitation of natural resources is shrinking the habitable areas of the globe. The oceanographic vessel Sedna 4 is sailing around the world to unveil the beauty and fragility of the planet. Sedna 4 and her crew are heading for Sumatra in Indonesia. Sumatra has a rich and varied wildlife, with over 200 species of mammals and nearly 600 different species of birds. Located in Southeast Asia, its tropical forests and peatlands are truly a part of the world's heritage. Yet every year, 2 million hectares of forest are cleared to become vast single-crop farms. That's the equivalent of 6 football fields disappearing every minute. The Indonesian government grants concessions to large corporations who turn these precious forests into plantations. Deforestation is quick and brutal. Animals who try to escape or find refuge in small stands of remaining trees are trapped by fires deliberately set. Though illegal, this murderously destructive practice is widespread. Oil palm plantations are springing up everywhere. The fruit produces palm oil, the most popular vegetable oil in the world. An estimated half of all food on supermarket shelves contains palm oil, to say nothing of cosmetics and biofuels. Ian Singleton is the director of SOCP, the Sumatran Orangutan Conservation Program. Orangutans have become a symbol of the fight against deforestation. They are on the sad list of critically endangered species.
The best estimates that we have today of orangutan population in Sumatra is around the 6,000, 7,000 mark. Maybe slightly more, maybe slightly less. But the important thing is it's going down. Now, in the last sort of 10 years, it's been going down slowly. And what we're looking at now is a potential situation where it's going to start going down rapidly.
New concessions have just been granted to palm oil companies in an area that was formerly protected, threatening the survival of the last wild populations.
The trees are all cleared, everything is scorched, and 99.999% of everything that lived there dies. You can go into these areas and look for a grasshopper or a lizard, and you can't find one. They're not there. Nothing survives this conversion process. Because when they're chopping down these forests in the first instance, they don't sort of get every tree on day one. So you end up with a few trees here and a few trees there. And sometimes you find there's an orangutan mother up there.
In the first phase of deforestation, some animals find refuge in what's left of the forest. Poachers look for infant orangutans, much to the distress of the females who try to protect their young.
So they will chop the tree down and then they will jump on this animal and beat it and club it with machetes and wood and sharpened bamboo sticks and everything, and it'll be killed that way.
Most adult orangutans die or are left seriously injured. The young orphans are captured and transported to large centers where they will be sold in secret as pets.
The wounds sometimes that we see are just horrific. We had one many years ago. She aborted a full-term fetus during the attack, and when we got to her, she was chained to a tree by the neck, and her entire body was swollen up like she'd just done 50 rounds with Mike Tyson. It was horrible. The level of violence you need to do that, just concerted violence, it just amazes me. I find it hard to get it in my head that people can be that vicious.
Occasionally, local forest police are alerted and intervene. Wounded animals will then be picked up by SOCP or other NGOs and taken away for medical treatment. But for most of the other orangutans, it's death. Slow, agonizing, lonely, and forgotten. Through its work and research programs, SOCP is trying to save the last wild populations of orangutans in Sumatra. Here at the quarantine station, most residents are young orangutans confiscated from owners who kept them in captivity in often deplorable conditions. The ultimate aim of SOCP is to release all its charges, young and old, into the wild. But not all the animals will be so lucky.
Losa was shot 62 times with an air rifle. We've managed to take 14 pellets out of him, but he's still got 48 inside. And he's got the problem, his biggest problem, he's got 2 in this eye and 1 in this eye, so he's completely blind. You can see his eyes, look, there's just nothing there at all. And we'll never be able to fix that. So he's going to spend the rest of his life as a captive orangutan, which could be more than, could be 40, 50 years.
All the rescued animals have to spend time in quarantine before going to the socialization cages. This is where these young orangutans will learn how to become wild animals again.
So this is, these are the socialization cages. So this is the first time they've met and been introduced to other orangutans, probably since their mother was killed and they were first captured. So this is where, once they're in here, they have to learn all these orangutan behavioral skills, how to defend their food resources and then you find out who the bullies are and who the subordinate ones are and everything else.
So they all will be released eventually?
Yeah, everybody in here is a release candidate. We're just waiting. This Saturday, we plan to move 6 orangutans from here to Janto to start the release process there, and everybody else is just waiting for their turn. But it's quite a rewarding stage to get to, because these guys have many of them have spent years on their own. Some of them have even spent like 10 years chained to a single tree around the neck with a meter of chain. And to finally get them into a place like this where they can really exercise, get to move around, learn all these new skills, it's a really rewarding part of the process.
Once again, SOCP comes to the rescue. A wounded orangutan has been found on a plantation. The team must get him to the quarantine station as quickly as possible. The medical team have named him Ria. He's an older male.
Wow. Wow. So this is the one we got yesterday morning, yeah?
Yeah, we just got the information from the forestry department, and then he said with us he found some big orangutan in the plantation, and the people say the orangutan is just staying in one place and then don't want to moving, and then when try to looking with binocular, he found a lot of wound there. So this is why the forestry department make a decision to take this orangutan going to here.
He's got a big scar
this
here.
Is a lot of wound on his body. On the head, this is very big wound there, and this is very deep. And then we found a big hole on the here, and then on the right hand, is it? He cannot using, and when we try to palpate, the scapula is calm down. So I don't know exactly is this a fracture or just dislocation. So we will make sure with the X-ray.
But it's surprisingly calm, yeah?
Yeah.
The first step is to anesthetize the animal. He'll then be taken to an examining room and X-ray to determine the extent of his injuries. Ria's body is a mass of wounds and bruises, apparently inflicted by the plantation workers. Again, the level of violence indicates the barbaric treatment that awaits any orangutan who dares set foot on cultivated land. The first x-rays confirm that he's been shot. The pellets can be seen all through his body.
So,
Yeah, this is the head and the skull. You can see there's the 1, 2, 3 pellets up there. 3 bullets here. 1, 2, 3. So I think there's around 18. Yeah, but it's kind of weird because they usually focus on the head. You know, they usually shoot him in the face. But these are obviously not too far away from his eyes. If they'd hit him in the eyes, he'd have been blinded. Yeah.
A thorough examination confirms that Ria has major internal injuries. He'll need several surgeries and extensive treatment for numerous infections. The medical team will need an ample dose of patience and TLC if they hope to save this wounded fellow.
so after 6 hours of the surgery, what's the verdict?
It looks from the x-rays, there's no sign of any sort of bone damage. And so his problem is all these cuts and holes. And especially his right hand, it's completely shot to pieces. The tendons inside the hand is all rotten. You can actually put a finger almost all the way in, just about every direction. And the tendons seem to be already rotten, so you can pull the ends and make the fingers move. So there's a good chance we may have to amputate that, but we'll review that over the next few days.
So if you have to cut his right arm, is there less chance to be released, or?
It depends on him, but he's lived in the forest, wild, and as long as he's sensible, missing a hand probably wouldn't be a major problem. We've already released one big male orangutan with an amputated arm here, and it doesn't bother him at all. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. It depends very much on him now, I think.
Ria will be under 24-hour observation for the next few days. Veterinarians are especially concerned about some of the internal injuries caused by the violent blows he received. He must be carefully monitored throughout his recovery. Orangutans aren't the only victims of deforestation in Indonesia. Another species is the gibbon, a small tree-dwelling monkey that moves with astonishing agility. His characteristic song has become a hymn to the forest, a long lament with which the gibbon defines his territory. The neighboring island of Borneo is also being stripped bare. More than half of its forests are gone, slashed and burned for the profit of palm oil plantations. And recent land concessions could lead to the disappearance of 90% of the remaining forest on the island. Aurélien Brulé, known as Shane, left his native France at the age of 18 to settle in Indonesia. He founded Kalawait, an organization for the protection of gibbons. Deforestation on Borneo follows the same pattern. In the first stages, poachers target young gibbons to be sold as pets. At his conservation center, Aurélien Brulé tries to give gibbons who've been confiscated from the owners a decent life. They now live in large enclosures in the heart of the forest.
Throughout the Indonesian archipelago, we estimate there are 6,000 gibbons in captivity. Where do they come from? From the forest. The mother is killed and the baby clinging to her belly is captured. And they become living playthings. They're toys. People play with them for a while, then stick them in a cage where they die. It's sad, but this is increasingly common. More and more animals are being held in captivity because so many are caught during habitat destruction. So the logger moonlights as a poacher. They cut down the forest, leaving a little stand of trees where the gibbons are easy to catch. Then they sell them. I'm not giving these animals a second chance. I'm giving them a decent life, which they deserve. They didn't choose captivity. They didn't choose to be caught by poachers. It's our duty as human beings. I'm contributing by having these animals serve as wildlife ambassadors, to give us the means and the tools to protect those who are still in the trees. It's a global problem and very complex.
To protect the last wild gibbon populations, Shani makes regular flights over the great Indonesian forests to track deforestation. He's often able to flush out poachers who go about their business deep in the forest, out of sight.
One of your essential tools is your paraglider.
Yes, it's extremely effective because it takes so little effort. In a single half-hour flight, I can evaluate the situation in a reserve of over 1,000 hectares. It would take days on foot to ensure that there was nothing to worry about. I can also keep an eye on areas that are being cleared. This shows a path that was made in the interior. It's the first step before clear cutting. It's an access to the forest. And there they've started clearing, and you can see what's going on. So that's clear cutting. And they've also set fibers to be able to cut faster. So that forest is on fire.
But there must be a risk of the fires spreading.
A great risk, but that's actually what they want. To set a fire and burn as much as possible. So it's easier to burn the forest into a plantation. These fires don't get out of control. They are deliberately set to spread as far as possible. That's why there are dozens of fires lit here and there, so as much as possible will burn. The longer the dry season, the happier the oil palm industry is, because they can, unfortunately, convert the forest more quickly.
Isn't it against the law?
Absolutely. But this goes on every year in Borneo and Sumatra. The haze will even go beyond the country's border. That's how huge the fires are.
To counteract the massacre, Callaway was able to negotiate the creation of a protected preserve where they could release their gibbons back to nature.
When I created this reserve in Borneo, I did it with the authorities, with the locals. It was an ideal conservation organization. Then came elections. Attitudes and interests changed, and they're now cutting down the forest. What will happen to those animals? This is also a very corrupt country. Indonesia is the 5th most corrupt country in the world, so you have to deal with that. I can't remake Indonesia. My goal is to save gibbons, save the forest, so I do anything I can to achieve that. I've devoted 11 years of my life to a reserve in Borneo. 11 years of work, money, and patrols. Today, as we speak, this forest is being clear-cut. And the orangutans and gibbons who call it home? Sorry.
International pressure from many countries forced the hand of the Indonesian government, which did eventually set up national parks for the conservation of threatened species. But in the absence of competent authorities in the field, poachers operate freely, destroying any conservation efforts. The Teso Nilo National Park was supposed to protect 1,000 square kilometers of forest. Today, around 80% of the park is subject to rampant illegal poaching. On the edges of this park, the WWF has created its Elephant Brigade.
When the park was established, the park was already in a very bad condition at that time. So basically almost like land of nobody, and that's why these encroachers started to come. So the encroachers that were already there at that time become even more rampant because they possibly invite more people. And now, despite the situation, they still are surviving. It's now gone and turned into oil palm mainly. It's tough being elephant here in central Sumatra, but despite the situation, they still are surviving.
In the heart of this supposedly protected park is more evidence of illegal activity.
This is quite amazing.
Yes.
Who did this?
This area, what I heard is done by the local people here, not far from this area, that they still believe that this area is still part of their customary land. People who are in the field are basically, generally, are just poor people that happen to need some money or just to sustain their life.
The threat to the survival of endangered species isn't restricted to the period of deforestation. Mature plantations pose their own dangers to survivors of deforestation. A team from the World Wildlife Fund uses GPS monitors to track the movement of some of the wild elephants. This morning, a herd entered a large oil palm plantation alongside another national park. These migratory animals simply don't have enough protected forest left, since the parks and reserves are under siege by the poachers. The team needs to intervene quickly to try to settle this new conflict between the wild elephants and the plantation owners.
We are just at the limit of Palaraja National Park, and we hear farmers who are attempting to hunt elephants off the plantations.
Challenge here is that to chase the elephant, you need to direct them to a place that is safe. But here, there is almost nowhere they can go.
The oil palm company owners have sent a group of workers to chase the elephants out of the plantation. The battalion, armed with firecrackers, tracks and surrounds the elephants, who have nowhere to go. It's an open-air circus, with the elephants as victims of an organized hunt.
The elephant are trying to go here, but there's somebody there again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, they're
There's
trapped.
so many noise here.
Yeah.
We are living in like the war zone. They keep on trying to survive despite this kind of situations. Almost every one of them got different kind of scars in their body because they've been tortured here and there.
Slowly, run out. Now we are safe.
The elephants were able to get away from the first plantation, but are now being subjected to repeated attacks by workers at the next plantation over.
Look, you know, they're right in the middle of the two plantations and they don't know where to go.
Yeah. Different people chasing from different
Yeah.
directions, so they must be really confused.
The plantations have become war zones where owners can do as they please. The elephants simply no longer have enough protected habitat to survive. National parks have been reduced to almost nothing, and the Indonesian government continues to close its eyes to flagrantly illegal activity. Many elephants die every year, poisoned for having breached the borders of plantations. There are only a few hundred Sumatran elephants left in this part of the island. The Indonesian government's inability to protect its parks and reserves leaves conservation groups with few alternatives.
That was the end for me. Now I don't take risks. I buy the land. If I'm permitted to, under Indonesian law, now that I'm a citizen, I will buy up as much as possible. Even if in terms of conservation, I'm not sure it's the best option. But if we want to be as certain as possible that we can save the forest, we have to buy patches of forest, create private conservation zones. With €1,000, we can save 1 hectare. A family of Gibbons needs 15 hectares. €15,000 will save a Gibbon family forever. That is very concrete. And if we own the forest, we can put protection measures in place without having to seek authorization from any elected official, who may change every 5 years, or lobby authorities for which there is never a guarantee. This is completely different. Someone cuts down a tree on my reserve, it's as if someone came into my house to rob me. I call the local police who do their job. Welcome to Callaway, Sumatra.
From the high point of his reserve, we observe the morning spectacle of a family of wild gibbons. Free on land rich in a variety of species, in the heart of a parcel of forest protected by Callaway.
It's wonderful because looking down, you can see wild animals, which is almost impossible when you walk through the forest.
Yes, it's one of the few places where you can observe wild gibbons at eye level. This is a family of 5. And it's great because the male has light-colored fur and the female is black, so you can see patches of color moving through the forest.
That young one seems pretty lively.
Yes, that's typical of Gibbons. He's almost 2, still close to his mother, but he moves around on his own, jumping around to the annoyance of his parents.
What's amazing is to see that the work you do with the cages, with conservation, now allows you to buy sections of forest to protect it.
Yes, thanks to the animals you hear in the background singing in their cages, I can protect the wild ones. This is why I came to Indonesia, to see wild gibbons and protect them. And we're doing just that here at Callaway Reserve, the forest we bought. I can touch that goal with my fingertips. Saving gibbons means saving trees, which saves all the animals. We have no time to lose, and the best way to proceed is to buy up the forest. In Indonesia, the first big victory, and we have the necessary tools to win it, is to ensure that zones protected under Indonesian law, all the existing national parks, all the existing reserves, are well and truly protected on the ground. We have the tools we need, the laws on our side. National parks and reserves have already been created. But it's clear to see that in Indonesia, the way the law is enforced is not what people are used to in developed countries.
The Callaway Foundation relies entirely on donations from the public. Will Shani's plea reach into our homes, where we consumers of palm oil can make a difference? Bowing to international pressure, a group of growers teamed up to produce certified sustainable palm oil. But it's a fraction of the world's supply, and some NGOs doubt the honesty of certain producers. Yet respect for habitat and biodiversity ought to be a basic condition of earning the right to exploit the forest anywhere on the planet.
The fight against palm oil is crucial, not just for the forest of Indonesia, which unfortunately is already severely affected by palm oil. Anything we can save in Indonesia is only a first step. But if we don't organize a defense, an offense against palm oil, then the industry will start the same process of destruction in Central Africa, in Gabon, especially, which is renowned for its lush forest. The oil palm corporations are already there, and in Latin America. That's why it's vital to have victories here, so that the pattern doesn't repeat so severely in other countries where palm oil exploitation is in its infancy. Just look at what's happened in Malaysia, which was one of the first countries targeted by palm oil and where little forest is left.
Deforestation accounts for 20% of greenhouse gas released into the atmosphere every year, which is a major contributor to global warming. The big day has arrived for some residents of the quarantine station. Today they set out on the long journey to the Janto reintroduction site in Aceh province. They're now ready to be set free in a protected area where the SOCP places survivors of deforestation gathered from all over Sumatra. The fact that the release site is so hard to reach offers some protection to this fragile area, mostly made up of peatland.
Peatlands are deep peat where all the leaves and trees and branches that have fallen into the water have never rotted because there's no oxygen down there. So you end up with this massive accumulation of carbon under the ground, sometimes 6, 10, 20 meters deep, something like that. Now, if you actually look at Indonesia, I think Indonesia has something like 56% of all the world's tropical peatland. The amount of carbon considered to be in these peatlands by the experts was something like 4 to 16 times what's in the atmosphere today. So this is a major issue. If you want to reduce emissions of carbon into the atmosphere, if you can stop destruction of Indonesia's rainforest, and especially its peatlands, you take a huge leap in the direction of your goal. If we fail to protect these, it has major, major consequences for all of us, not just the people here, but everybody on the planet.
After traveling for hours, the orangutans at last reach the Janto Release Center. They'll be re-examined and then enter a final adaptation stage before being released into the forest.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. This is the bit where we actually get to take a breather, eh?
Yeah.
It's always stressful when you've got the orangutans on the road because anything can happen, like bridges breaking down or getting stuck with a broken axle or something. But once you get them here, they're healthy, they're in the cages, you can relax a bit. Orangutans tend to just sort of grasp it. You know, okay, I'm in a box, let's see where I go.
Yeah.
But not all orangutans are so lucky. At the quarantine station, Ria, the big male, badly beaten by plantation workers, is in trouble. He stopped responding to treatment, and his condition is deteriorating. The medical team needs to perform more surgery if there's any hope of saving his life.
Great day for Reuben, eh?
Yeah, in a minute, Muklis will he'll hang a few bits of fruit on the rope there, try and encourage him to go across, and then the last step is just to open the door.
Yeah.
And then it's up to the orangutan what he does next, yeah? This is what it's all about, yeah? I mean, ever since the orangutans first confiscated and in the medical quarantine and patched up and everything else, it's all about this day where the door is finally opened and they have that chance of a second life in the wild, which could be another 40, 50 years or so.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
At long last, the cage door slides open for Reuben, a young orangutan confiscated from his owners and treated by Ian's team. It's a great day, one everyone's been working towards, a day when freedom triumphs.
Obviously a little bit unsure about what he's doing, taking a look around. A lot of them do that. They you know, the surprise of having the door open is like, ooh, what's going on here? So they don't just immediately run into the trees, but they just consolidate themselves for a few minutes and see what's around, see what's where, and then they make a plan. Okay, look, he's off.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Not very interested in the fruit, more interested in the tree. We're very much hands-off from the very start. When they come out of the cages, they're not looking for a human contact. They're looking at the trees and seeing other orangutans there, and they're going there, and they're staying there. There's no difference between these orangutans right now and those orangutans I followed for 2 years in the swamps. They're up there all the time, feeding very much on the stuff they should be feeding on, and at the end of the day they made these beautiful nests and went to sleep. Yenny sent me a text. We lost the poor guy, so yeah, I didn't make it. But I'm kind of disappointed because I was a bit optimistic. I thought when we had a good look at him the other day, it looked like he's still pretty strong. He's been enthusiastic about his food, but I think the injuries that he's got inside are much more than we saw outside.
It's really sad because I thought it was a great, rescue story, but he was eating with good appetite and everything, but...
This is another orangutan dead at the hands of humans, farmers, villagers, just crazy people. When they get an opportunity like that, they just go nuts. Orangutans get killed almost on a daily basis just for nicking a couple of durian fruits or something like that, It's just bizarre. It's completely out of kilter. Sad. But we move on. Try and save the other ones.
I have the privilege to work with these magnificent species, including elephant, tigers, and rhinos, and they are categorized as critically endangered under IUCN criteria. All of these species or subspecies are in that category now. The next step beyond that is extinct in the wild, and we really don't want them to be there.
I can't imagine anyone thinking Callaway is a solution. It's often presented as such. Yes, we're doing amazing work, but we won't save the gibbon. Not the gibbon. We're saving some gibbons. And there's a huge difference. We're not saving the forest. We're saving bits of forest, fragments, pockets. But if we don't do it, we'll lose everything, so we have to do it. Maybe there'll be a study in 30 years in Borneo and we'll have saved 2% of the forest. Yeah, but it's not all gone. We have to focus on that, because if we don't act now, if nothing is done, we'll lose everything.